Um, the other game I want to mention is a game that, sometimes there are these games that everybody recommends to me. Like there are these games that come along that I will get emails and tweets and phone calls and texts. Everybody's like, you got to play this. You got to play this. You got to play this. One of those games happened just recently. It is called Chants of Sennaar. Not chants, chants. So like a chant, like, hey, chant.
Okay.
Chant of Sennaar is a puzzle game, but is a puzzle game unlike any I have experienced. It is a puzzle game if the what is that famous oh man, I'm not gonna be able to think of it. What's the name of the very famous thing that lets you learn a new language because of an R?
I literally know what you're talking about, but
What's it called? Doesn't matter. This is a game about language.
Rubik's Cube.
What's that?
Rubik's Cube.
Not Rubik's Cube. The Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone. Thank you.
there you go.
If the Rosetta Stone was a video game, it would be Chants of Sennaar. Because this is a game about learning a language, about interpreting a language from context clues. So it is a top-down isometric game, a very stark visual style, very similar to something like Sable that came out recently, or Roller Drome, which is a game Christian and I both loved from last year. So it has that kind of like thin line art style. I really like it. A very beautiful aesthetic. Top down, point and click. You can play with a controller, but I think it's better to point and click. And you are moving up the Tower of Babel, floor by floor. And in order to do that, you are this stranger in a strange land. You encounter these individuals whose language you do not speak. They speak to you. There are things written on the walls. You will encounter the language all over the place. And the language is a glyph, based on glyph, like a hieroglyphic language. So there's these glyphs, these impenetrable glyphs, that each glyph is a word. And your job in this game is to figure out the language, is to literally interpret what is happening around you and try to figure out how to move forward by deciphering the words. And the way you do that is interacting with these other people, observing things, going through the environment. And when they say something to you, you have this little journal in the game that shows you each of the glyphs and allows you to type in what your guess of what that word is. So then the next time you see, it'll be like a character will walk up to you and go like, blah, 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 and the little word bubbles will come up with the glyphs in them. And what you have typed in will be substituted in. So you'll see if it makes any sense. What you've decided,
interesting.
Are guessing, trying to create this syntax. And at a certain point, when you've gathered enough information, the game will open up another section of the notebook that you have, the little journal that you have, and show you specific slots to place in these glyphs. And if you put them in correctly, it'll be like, bring, yes, you got those words right. And then those words will forever be correctly displayed when those glyphs come up, when someone says them or they're on the wall or whatever.
What's fascinating? You get so immersed so quickly.
Fascinating. And it feels, at first when you start this game, it feels impossible. But the thing that quickly becomes clear is this is what you do in real life when you are learning a language. When you are in a foreign land. What?
I was going to ask, could this teach a real language? Could you start by saying, like, pick one of these 5 languages you don't know? And it's like, oh, French, here you go. And then you play the game and, like, learn some French?
I suspect
I would so be in on that.
It could be appropriated in that way. That is very much not what this game is doing, right? It is doing something completely different, and it has these like nonsensical symbols that are and I think it doesn't, because each symbol is a word, it doesn't have individual letters, it doesn't have syntax per se, like it's simplified, right? But by and large, the process is the same. And I felt like, you know, the times that I have traveled to foreign lands and tried to communicate, or the times that I have been in a classroom setting where it's like fully immersive Spanish or something like that, and we're just talking at you, or when you watch, you know, you watch a foreign language film without subtitles on, and you're like, I'm kind of getting it. And I've heard, you know, people that have learned entire languages just by like, I watched all of this soap opera in Korean, and now I know Korean. You know, that's how I learned that language. It's just I spent hours and hours, or people that have learned English by just coming here and watching TV. It's amazing, that process, because it's not a game process. It's not fun per se, right?
Sure,
It
yeah.
is work. And yet the feeling of getting something right in this game is extraordinary, because you really feel like you're unlocking knowledge. It applies not just to this puzzle, but now I have this word that's going to apply across this whole breadth of experience that I've run into, and now I'm understanding what they're saying to me. And it's amazing because the game doesn't just do it once. It does it over and over, because you unlock a language and then you go to the next level of Babel, the Tower of Babel, and there's a different culture with a whole different language, and you're like, now I gotta do this again.
That sounds so fun. One of my greatest
it's-
achievements in life is I went to Spain and I ordered a sandwich and a beer in Spanish, and I was so delighted. And if that game can replicate that feeling, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play
curious
that.
what you would think if it succeeds in that specific, because I felt like it was a very equivalent feeling to something like that. And honestly, you know, it reminded me of like Obra Dinn, and there's certain other games where it just feels impossible when you start it. Like the level, what the game is asking of you is so, it requires so much engagement and lean forward, like listening and thinking. Like there's nothing is spelled out for you, right?
Yeah, you can't be casual about it.
Right. And Obra Dinn, I admired so much, but ultimately like felt too much like work for me to finish it. I gave up on that game because like I need a friend, a buddy. I need more than one brain working on this. It just felt overwhelming at a certain point, and I admire that game very, very much, but it was too much. I have not finished Chants of Sennaar, but I have not felt that way. And ironically, again, this is the episode where I am a hypocrite over and over again. I honestly wish the game was harder, because, as I mentioned, there are those moments where you have the game has just decided that you have seen enough of something, and it clicks over into this other journal entry where it's like, here are the images of like a person pointing, which is what a person did in the context of me going, oh, are they saying you by pointing at me? Okay, I think that word means you. Okay, you. I'll put it in. Oh, that does kind of make sense. Okay, maybe that does mean you. But then at a certain point, the game is like, okay, you've seen enough. Here's where we're ready to confirm what you're saying, confirm what you think. And in those sequences, you can literally just mix and match symbols until it's right.
Oh, gotcha.
So you can sort of brute force your way through it at a certain point. You have to get to that section where it clicks over and goes, okay, here's the moment where we think you've seen enough. And so getting to there requires effort. And so it's not completely brute force, but I kind of wish it let me be wrong more. I kind of wish, and again, maybe that just breaks the whole experience and it would be super frustrating, and you would get too far down the road being wrong, and then you'd just be confused. So perhaps the designers know better than I, undoubtedly they do. But in the experience, I was like, it kind of doesn't matter if I'm right, as long as I'm gleaning meaning, right? Because there's a moment where, like, for example, I thought the word was something like, I thought the word was go, and the word was like enter or something. And those have slightly different meanings, right? And I wish, instead of correcting me and going, no, it means enter, it just let me continue to think it means go. And I could, because it kind of doesn't matter what exact words I have if I can construct my own version
Sure,
of
yeah.
the right language, of the right translation, right? If I can if I translate it slightly wrong but still effective, that would be mind-blowing and cool. Like, I would have a different solution than you if we both played this game, but we also both effectively did it. And I think that the game doesn't allow for that. And I think if it did, it would be even cooler, with the caveat that I suspect that might also break the game.
Yeah,
But
I
I
feel
kind of
like
found myself wishing it let me do that.
I see what you're saying, but I could see a world where like someone has their translation, but then they're failing later on and they just quit
Right.
the game. So like
Yes.
it's a hard one to balance for sure.
It is, and the game does an amazing job of being accessible and also feeling impenetrable. Like, when you start on a new tower level and there's just nonsense coming at you and you have no idea what anybody is saying.
Can you just jump in and kill them all? Because that's what I do. I get to the tower. I
I
have no clue what they're saying, and I just
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention the combat system in this game is amazing. No, there's no combat. There is stealth, though. There is forced stealth moments, which can be kind of frustrating. But you know, it's fun how the game like finds little games to play that actually are revealing information. Like, you're playing this game, like early on, there's a game of kind of hide and seek you're playing with a little child, and you keep finding it and you go, oh, he keeps going, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, no, he's saying, you found me. Okay, so found was the word. So now find and found are, I understand, you know, and that applies in other areas of the level. So it uses really interesting techniques to convey meaning, but like just like real life would. It's a pretty extraordinary game. And again, in a year of just mind-blowing games, I don't know where this fits in the best games of the year, but it's certainly unlike anything else I've ever played and remarkable. Like, the fact that somebody went, you know what would make a fun game? Learning a language, learning a fake language. And then they pulled it off, and I am completely engaged in it, and it's wild. So Chants, Chants, Chants of Sennaar, Sennaar. Remarkable achievement, I think.